This is the Korg Volca Sample. It's a great piece of gear, it's fun, easy to use, and actually pretty powerful. But there are a few limitations. There's no way to vary subdivisions, so if you're using 16th notes, you can't perform tuplets. If you're in a compound meter, you can't perform 16ths. Similarly, you can't create patterns that extend beyond a single measure without using a second pattern. There's also no way to switch samples within a pattern, so you're stuck with variations on the same sound with maybe slight adjustment to the pitch or start point. Finally, there's no synthesis capability like you'd find on a groove box, like for instance the MC101. Instead, programming melodies requires pitch-shifting samples. If you watch the video on formants and spectral envelopes, you'll remember how unnatural this can sound. Now, reading the title of the video, you might think you know where I'm going with this. And you'd be absolutely right. These things can all be solved with one simple trick: sample looping. So let's tackle each of these limitations and see what we can do. First, let's separate the limitations into two broad groups: sequencer limitations and timbral limitations. Has your drum programming ever sounded robotic? Sequencers, especially older drum machine sequencers, tend to have pretty low resolution. You'll have control over 16th notes and any grouping of 16th notes. Some, like the TR-808, give you a choice of scale that you can vary between sequences. This allows you to play compound meters and gives you a decent amount of flexibility, but good luck playing quintuplets without some serious pattern math. With loop samples, we can find a way around this. Set the sample to loop and adjust the sample length until you have something close to the desired tuplet. If you only want one beat of tuplets, use motion sequencing to shorten the decay on the following beat. With longer samples, you can use this to create a decoupled pattern external to your one-bar loop. Set the length of a loop sample to something that doesn't fit neatly into a measure. Then, after the initial note plays, mute the part or remove the step from the sequencer. These techniques are a great way to stretch the limits of patterns. To get more than 4 beats out of a pattern, divide your tempo by 2, 4, or even 8, and use loops to fill in any in-between steps. The Volca sample is capable of tempos as low as 10 BPM, so you could get patterns as long as 24 seconds. We've looked at sample looping from a macro level, but what about a micro level? What happens when we lower the sample length to extremely low values? By looping at audio rates, we can create tones with distinct timbres. This turns the Volca into a sort of 8-voice wavetable synth, although one with admittedly less precision than a PPG or Waldorf. By changing your start point, you can scan through different timbres all derived from your chosen sample. This is a great way to make melodies, chords, or even unique drum sounds. Personally, I like to use this method in conjunction with motion sequencing and the pitch envelopes to create tuned kicks. So let's hear what that sounds like with the trap hats from before. Combine these tricks with the Volca's other facilities, and you can create complex arrangements that seem far beyond the scope of this little box. So the next time you feel limited by a piece of gear, see if you're making the fullest use of what it can do. If you are, you might find that the things it can't do don't matter as much anymore. If you like this episode and want bonus tutorials and one-on-one synth lessons, support me on Patreon at patreon.com/thatbeet. As always, this has been Synth Fundamentals. Happy sequencing.